So why pursue social impact now? I'm sure many of you have seen some impressive programs pop up inside of your MBA schools that are focused on social impact, on social entrepreneurship, on rapid design and development for the bottom of the pyramid. There's a lot of this, kind of a excitement around this space right now, and really what is that and why is that? Well, it is exciting because it's a hotspot of business model innovation. There are organizations that are all across the world working on very different business models, pulling on different incentive levers to deliver these incredible services that in some cases are life-changing for their recipients. And right now, as an MBA, you can join and become a member of this new landscape. You can help construct what it looks like and start tinkering with these business models that are being put in place. And the reason that this is important is because we're starting to see this convergence of business and social impact sectors. It's been written about at length, and this goes both ways. It's certainly on the nonprofit and social impact side, organizations that are implementing more business processes and business practices. But we're also starting to see it, obviously, on the business side. This is where organizations are taking a hard look at their supply chains and looking to evaluate where they're making a social impact, how can they minimize risk by addressing social issues in the supply chain, or really around employee retention and attraction. In order to be competitive now, you need to offer programs to your employees to allow them to give back to the community in a variety of ways. The next kind of group of reasons of why social impact now is that it's practical. It's a practical pursuit for those career-minded of you. This MBA opportunity really provides a transition for you. It provides a jumping-off point to evaluate new careers, new sectors, and I'm probably preaching to the choir for those of you that have joined today, but it's an excellent opportunity to jump from one place to another. So it can be a very practical move to evaluate the social impact sector now. In addition, as we talk about that convergence of business and social sectors, in demand are these cross-sector leaders, so people that are fluent in both kind of the nonprofit, social impact, social benefit space, as well as the for-profit space. And so as people start to begin looking for those individuals, those leaders, the search has gone deeper into saying, hey, where have you created an impact in your career? Or if you're looking at someone with a nonprofit background, so where have you interacted with the business community? How have you shown that you're a collaborator? So there's a big focus on these cross-sector leaders. And then there's advancement opportunities in the space. With the MBA skill set, you're kind of uniquely positioned to escalate up the ranks. And that's for a variety of reasons, but you're really well positioned to work with all facets of the organization, from the program side to some of the administrative functions like finance, accounting, and lead strategy and management positions. Then there's personal reasons that you may have for evaluating the impact sector. A lot of us have walked around with this passion, kind of a higher calling that we know has been there, but haven't quite been sure where to apply that pressure and apply our skills in order to make that happen. And some of us, and I knew I used to fall into this camp for sure, was that there's this dormant need. I was an investment banker for a number of years, and I always felt that there was this dormant need to give back to the community and explore the social impact space further, but didn't necessarily have the faculties or awareness to figure out how to do that. So we'll cover a little bit of that as well. And the last thing is need. So there's this new focus on business processes bubbling up inside of the social impact space, but this new complexity, these new focus on business processes generally need some business leadership. I've pointed to before a kind of talent crisis that's going on at the top echelons of these nonprofit organizations. As they evolve their business models, they've started to become and resemble businesses far more than they have their nonprofit selves. So they do need that new skill set to come in and breathe fresh life into management and operations. So let's dive into where you can make an impact. So again, we have the social impact space and the MBA space, and they do overlap, but it's kind of figuring out where on a spectrum or where on this continuum of social impact organizations can you make your impact. So let's consider the social impact spectrum. One of the lenses that we can use, and as MBAs, I'm sure everyone's kind of used to this, is either the financial return lens. So if you look at social impact on the far left here, if you give $100 to a traditional charity, you'll never see any of that back. That's your negative 100% return. Moving farther along the spectrum, you have nonprofit organizations and up to that 0% threshold where you're generating a return. You may have earned income from services that nonprofits often have, but you're not returning anything to investors. Then we get into the social enterprise and business for good type spaces where there is some element of financial return that's expected. The far right of the spectrum includes your traditional business. So all the way to the right, exclusively kind of the provenance of MBAs, is that traditional business. All the way to the left is what we bucket as charities. And I'll add a few different buckets of what these organizations, just to provide a framework about how to think about organizations and pursuing opportunities at each. Similarly, if we look at where does this return go, there's a different focus for each of the organizations. So traditional charities are focused on giving everything to their beneficiaries. In the social enterprise, right in the middle, you might be evaluating broader stakeholder groups. And then, of course, in traditional business, you're focused on returns to the shareholders. Again, just a useful way to think about the entire spectrum of business rather than just the social impact camp and just the traditional for-profit business camp. So on this next slide, we're evaluating where can you make an impact? What are some of the buckets of organizations that you should be focused on if you're looking to transition into your MBA into impact? So this is the same scale, just kind of flattened out, but here are the buckets. Number one, charities. I purposely use this term. It's a bit outmoded, but these are organizations that tend to be service-focused and are delivering services to a specific population. A step to the right from that would be nonprofits. I use that term intentionally as well. These are more organizations that are run but not for a profit. Further to the right are social enterprises. That's where we start to see profit entering the mix. And these are organizations that are either providing a good or a service and are making some sort of profit, a blended return of social and economic value. Then the other two buckets, which are oftentimes lumped into social enterprise, but I like to stripe out, are businesses for good and businesses and good. Both are, again, great places for MBAs to make an impact, but in different ways. A business for good is using the principles and their entire business to create good. So this is an organization, I actually put Tom's Shoes into this category. They are, manufacturing shoes. They're doing so in an ethically and responsible way and giving back to the communities in which they work. I say that this is a little bit different than social enterprises because they're not focused directly on the services that are creating a better world, but they're instead using their business to create better opportunities. Then business and good. This is where you get into a different group, and these are traditional businesses, but they have a very robust corporate social responsibility function. So this is businesses that are also doing good with what they're doing. So by the numbers, there's 1.5 million nonprofits. So that's in the United States. So those are the charities and nonprofits that you see in those groups. And there are 18.2 million businesses across the United States of varying sizes. Some percentage of those are in the social enterprise, business for good, and business and good elements. So those are all places to look at when you're thinking about where you can translate your MBA into impact.